Smoke filled the sky. The once bright cities of Earth were now ruins, their streets littered with debris and fallen soldiers. The air smelled of burning metal and ash. Human forces were in chaos, scattered across the battlefield like ants crushed by an invisible hand. Alien war machines stomped through the rubble, their weapons tearing through everything. No one had expected this. No one had expected humanity to be pushed this far. Commander Elena Hart stood on the edge of a collapsed building, her eyes scanning the horizon. She could barely recognize the city she had grown up in. Explosions shook the ground under her feet, and the screams of the wounded echoed through the streets. Her uniform was torn, and her hands shook as she held her blaster. It was not fear that gripped her, it was desperation. "Sir, we're losing them," said Lieutenant Marcos, his voice strained. "Our defenses, they can't hold much longer." Elena clenched her teeth. She had seen courage before, but this was different. The aliens were precise, relentless, and terrifying. Their eyes glowed with a cold intelligence, and their weapons were designed not just to kill, but to erase hope. Humanity was on the brink of extinction. In the midst of chaos, Elena's communicator buzzed. A voice crackled through the static. "Commander Hart, are you receiving this?" Yes, we hear you," Elena replied. "This is General Voss. The Council has approved the final protocol. We are calling them." Elena froze. She had heard whispers about it before. Stories told in hushed tones among soldiers. A species so feared, so deadly, that even the aliens had nightmares about them. For centuries, no one dared to contact them. And now, in the darkest hour, humanity had no choice. "Are you sure this is wise?" Elena asked. "We can't control them if they come." General Voss's voice was calm, but heavy. "We have no choice, Commander. If we do not call them, everything is lost." Elena swallowed hard. She knew the truth. The humans standing with her were brave, but they were outmatched. They had fought with everything they had. But everything they had was not enough. The battlefield was a mess of destruction. Alien ships hovered above, scanning the ruins for survivors. Their weapons were deadly, cutting through armor vehicles like paper. Humans fought back, but every move seemed futile. Even the bravest soldiers fell. Private Ryland, barely 20, ducked behind a pile of rubble. His face was streaked with dirt and blood. "I didn't sign up for this," he whispered to himself. "I just wanted to survive." But survival seemed impossible. Then, a strange hum filled the air. It was not the alien machines. It was something else. Something ancient. Something the humans had only dreamed about. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the ground. Soldiers froze. Alien patrols paused, scanning the horizon. There was a tension, a fear in the air that even the aliens could not hide. Elena looked up. Through the smoke, she saw shapes moving in the sky. They were enormous, covered in armor that shimmered like molten metal. Their eyes glowed with a color she could not name. And yet, there was something human in their movement, an intelligence, a focus, a purpose. "They're here," she whispered. A cheer rose from the soldiers who could hear her. Hope, fragile and trembling, sparked in their hearts. For the first time, they felt that survival might be possible. The aliens, however, did not share their joy. Their formations broke. Confusion spread like wildfire among their ranks. Something they had feared for centuries had returned. And now it was on Earth. The first skirmish began. The mysterious species moved with incredible speed, their weapons and claws tearing through alien soldiers. Entire squads fell in moments. The aliens tried to fight back, but their attacks were weak against the newcomers. Every strike from the mysterious species was precise, every movement calculated. They were not just fighting, they were ending the alien threat. Elena watched, awestruck. She had fought bravely, led her troops through impossible odds. But this was beyond anything she had ever seen. "Commander, we can't believe it," whispered Lieutenant Marcos. They are unstoppable." Elena nodded. She could see it too. These beings were not just strong. They were perfection in motion. Every soldier, every commander, every alien who had once terrorized humanity now faced a force they could not comprehend. But even in the midst of victory, fear remained. No one knew the cost of calling them. No one knew if they would stay to fight with humans, or if they would leave, taking their wrath with them if humans failed to satisfy their standards. The battlefield changed quickly. Humans, emboldened by the arrival, rallied. They fought harder, pushed forward, and took back areas lost in the first wave of attacks. Elena found herself leading a small squad through the ruins. They moved carefully, dodging fire, climbing over rubble, and rescuing civilians where they could. Behind them, the mysterious species cut a path of destruction through alien forces, forcing them to retreat. Yet, even as they advanced, Elena could see the danger was far from over. Alien commanders were regrouping. Their eyes glowed with hatred. They had faced humanity before, and even after centuries, they still underestimated human cunning. Now, they would not make that mistake again. Private Ryland stumbled, tripping over a fallen beam. Elena grabbed his arm, steadying him. "Stay close," she said. "We are not safe yet." He nodded, his face pale but determined. He had seen the horrors, yes, but he had also seen something extraordinary, something that gave him hope. Above, the mysterious species fought with precision and brutality that left everyone watching in awe. They moved like shadows, striking fast, vanishing, reappearing where least expected. The aliens' advanced technology seemed almost useless. And then came the moment Elena had feared and hoped for at the same time. The leader of this feared species appeared. Taller, broader, more terrifying than the others. His armor shone with a light that seemed alive. His weapon, unlike anything human or alien had seen, hummed with power. He scanned the battlefield with piercing eyes. When his gaze landed on Elena and her squad, she felt a shiver run down her spine. Not from fear, but from recognition. They were being judged. Their courage, their actions, their very survival. It was all being weighed. Then, without a word, he moved forward. Alien soldiers fell before him like wheat before a scythe. Humans followed, inspired by the sheer presence of this being. In that moment, everything changed. The tide of battle shifted. What had seemed like certain defeat was now a fight for survival with hope, with power, when ally the aliens could not face. Elena realized something important. They had called the one species everyone feared, yes, but survival was not guaranteed. Victory would require trust, courage, and a willingness to face the unknown. And yet, for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to hope. The battlefield, once a place of despair, was now alive with energy. Humans fought beside legends. Aliens faltered. Smoke and fire mingled with the strange hum of the newcomers' weapons. And above it all, the mysterious leader moved with silent promise. Humanity had a chance. But deep inside Elena, a question lingered, one she could not ignore. What did it cost to call them? And what would happen when this war was over? The sun set behind the ruins, casting long shadows over the battlefield. The aliens were regrouping, but the humans now had an advantage. The feared species had arrived. The unexpected turning point had come. And for the first time, the soldiers, the civilians, and even the commanders dared to believe that the impossible might be possible. The battle was far from over. The dangers were real. The aliens were cunning. But humanity had made a choice. And that choice had awakened a force the universe had not seen in centuries. In the quiet moments between explosions, as smoke cleared and soldiers caught their breath, Elena whispered to herself, "We are not alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, we can survive this." The hum of the mysterious species continued in the distance, a reminder that the war had only just begun, and that the legends had returned to fight for humanity. The battlefield was silent for a moment, but only a moment. Smoke still drifted across the shattered streets, and the cries of the wounded filled the air. Yet, amidst the chaos, there was something different, something the soldiers could feel in their bones. A presence, heavy and commanding, that seemed to stretch across the city and even into the sky above. Elena Hart lowered her weapon and looked around. The human forces were regrouping, gathering what little strength they had left. Their eyes were wide with a mix of awe and disbelief. The mysterious species, the ones everyone had feared for centuries, had arrived, and the tide of battle had shifted in an instant. But Elena knew that this was only the beginning. She turned to her communicator. "General Voss, the species, they've arrived. They're incredible. But what now?" The general's voice was calm, almost eerily so. Now, Commander, you wait. You observe. The summoning has worked, but their involvement comes with rules. You must follow their lead, not question it. Humanity has called them, but it is not their war. It is ours, guided by their hand. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had fought battles before, had led troops through impossible odds, but this was something entirely different. Humanity had reached out into the void, into legends whispered across millennia, and now those legends were here. The soldiers moved cautiously through the ruins. Private Ryland, still shaking from the previous skirmish, muttered under his breath, "I didn't think we'd make it, but now, what are these things?" Elena shook her head. "They're not just soldiers. They're history. They're the reason every alien species feared humans for centuries. And now, they've come back for us." In the distance, the aliens had begun to regroup. Their formations were tight, disciplined, but there was hesitation. Fear lingered in their movements, subtle but unmistakable. They had fought humans before, yes, but never with the legendary species in the fray. The aliens knew the stories. Tales of unstoppable warriors who could wipe out armies without mercy, whose names had become myths whispered in dread. Meanwhile, high above the city, the air shimmered. A strange portal opened, glowing with an otherworldly light. Elena's squad stopped in their tracks, staring upward. One by one, figures began to descend, walking with grace and power, their armor reflecting the dim light of the ruined city. "They're coming," whispered Lieutenant Marcos, his voice tight. "More of them, and they're perfect." The newcomers did not speak. They did not shout orders. Yet the humans instinctively knew where to go, what to do. It was as if the very presence of these warriors commanded obedience and inspired courage all at once. The first skirmish had shown their power, but now the human commanders were starting to see the bigger picture. This species did not fight recklessly. Every strike was calculated, precise. Every movement had a purpose, and their targets, always the most dangerous threats, disappeared in moments, leaving the battlefield in stunned silence. Elena's mind raced. She had expected help. Yes, but she had not expected this. Not the scale, not the precision, not the sheer terror they inspired in the aliens. And yet, even as hope surged through her, a question lingered. Why now? Why have they returned at this precise moment? General Voss's voice came again over the communicator. "Commander, the Council did not summon them lightly. There is more to this than survival. These beings, they respond to need, yes, but they also respond to respect, courage, and the willingness to fight. They will not intervene if they sense weakness or doubt. Humanity's choices will decide how far their aid goes." Elena swallowed hard. She understood. The humans had called a force of legends. But legends were not friends. Legends were power, and power could be dangerous. As the humans regrouped, the aliens launched a cautious counterattack. They sent smaller squads, testing the newcomers, trying to gauge their strength. But the response was devastating. Each squad was obliterated in moments, their numbers reduced to nothing. The alien commanders realized the truth. They were facing a force beyond their understanding, beyond their technology, beyond anything they had prepared for. Elena led her squad through wreckage, rescuing civilians, guiding troops, and keeping her focus on survival. Behind her, the mysterious species continued to push the aliens back, carving a path through destruction. And yet, despite the awe-inspiring display, there was tension. Elena could feel it. Something about their presence was waiting, watching, judging. That night, as the survivors huddled in the ruins, Elena found herself unable to rest. She walked through the wreckage, listening to the distant hum of the newcomers' movements. She had questions, many of them, but she knew better than to ask. These beings did not answer questions. They did not explain. They acted, and the universe bent around their actions. Private Ryland approached her, his face pale. "Commander, do you think they'll stay? Or will they leave after this battle?" Elena looked up at the sky, where faint shapes moved in the darkness. "I don't know," she admitted. "I think they come when they're needed, and then they leave when their work is done. But while they're here, we have a chance to survive." The next morning, the humans watched as a mysterious species gathered on a hill overlooking the city. Their numbers were fewer than expected, but each one radiated authority and power. They did not speak to the humans directly, but their presence was enough. Orders were given silently, movements coordinated instinctively, and humans followed without hesitation. Elena's squad joined the ranks, feeling the shift in morale. Humans who had been trembling with fear now stood tall, fighting with courage they had not known they possessed. The aliens, once confident and relentless, now moved with caution, sensing the danger that arrived on Earth. The aliens' leaders convened in a distant command ship. Their communication crackled across the battlefield. "This is impossible," one of them hissed. "They are not supposed to be here. This is forbidden. How did humanity call them?" Another alien commander growled. "We underestimated them. We always underestimate humans. And now we will pay." Back on the battlefield, Elena watched the humans advance. Their movements were sharper, more coordinated. The presence of the mysterious species was more than just aid. It was a lesson. Humanity was learning to fight again, to survive again, and to embrace the courage that had long been buried under fear and despair. And then it happened. The leader of the mysterious species, the one taller and more imposing than the rest, stepped forward. His eyes, glowing faintly, scanned the human forces. He raised a hand, and instantly, a silence fell across the battlefield. The humans stopped, the aliens froze, and even the wind seemed to pause. Elena felt her heart race. This was the moment of judgment. Their fate was being weighed. Not by aliens, not by technology, but by a being who had walked the universe long before either species had existed. A single motion, and the humans were given direction, a path through the ruins, a strategy to counter the aliens' movements, a way to turn despair into hope. Elena and her squad followed instinctively. The aliens tried to resist, but the newcomers anticipated every move, every trap, every tactic. By midday, the tide had shifted decisively. Alien squads were retreating, some surrendering outright, others fleeing into the unknown. Humans pressed forward, driven by a mixture of fear and awe, finally beginning to reclaim the ground they had lost. Yet, even in victory, tension lingered. The mysterious species had not revealed their full power. They had not spoken a word, nor offered any guidance beyond what was absolutely necessary. Their motives were unclear, their loyalty uncertain. Humanity had gained a powerful ally, but they had also awakened a force whose rules they did not yet understand. Elena paused on the hill, overlooking the city. She could see the aliens retreating, their formations broken, their morale shattered. She could see civilians emerging from hiding, their faces etched with relief and disbelief. And she could see the newcomers, standing silently, watching, waiting. General Voss's voice came again over the communicator. "Commander, remember this. Calling them was only the first step. They are powerful, yes, but their allegiance is not given lightly. Humanity must prove itself worthy, not just to survive, but to command their aid when it is most needed. The battle continues, but now, hope exists where none did before." Elena nodded, understanding fully. The summoning had worked. Humanity had survived the impossible, if only for now. The mysterious species had arrived, and their presence had changed everything. But questions remained. Who were they truly? Why had they returned now? And, perhaps most importantly, what would they demand once the battle was over? As night fell over the city, the survivors gathered. Fires burned, and stories of bravery were shared. Soldiers who had faced death stared at the sky, wondering when the next strike would come, and whether the legends they had summoned would remain by their side. Above it all, the hum of the mysterious species continued, a reminder of power, judgment, and the weight of legends. Humanity had called them, and they had come. The summoning had succeeded, but the true test was only beginning. And somewhere in the shadows, Elena felt it. An understanding that the universe was watching, that their actions would echo far beyond this battle, and that calling the feared species was not just about survival, but about awakening something that could change everything. The unexpected turning point had passed, but the war was far from over. The sun had barely risen, yet the battlefield was already alive with tension. Smoke still lingered over the ruined city, twisting around broken towers and shattered streets. Humanity had survived the previous wave of attacks, but no one was celebrating. Victory was fragile, temporary, and the shadows carried whispers of something darker. Elena Hart stood atop a collapsed bridge, scanning the horizon. She could see the humans moving cautiously through the debris, their faces etched with exhaustion, determination, and awe. But her eyes were drawn higher, to the shapes in the sky. The feared species had not just arrived. They were positioning themselves. The first sight struck fear even into the hardened soldiers of Earth. The newcomers were larger than any human or alien, their armor gleaming with strange metallic patterns that seemed alive. Each movement was precise, deliberate, and deadly. Their eyes glowed like molten stars, scanning the battlefield as if reading the very souls of every being present. "They're perfect," whispered Private Rylan, still trembling. How can they exist?" Elena didn't answer. Words would not do justice to what she saw. These were not just warriors. They were forces of nature, living weapons forged by time, battle, and something she could not name. The aliens, however, were not slow to notice. Their ranks stiffened, their formations tightening as fear spread like a contagion. Even commanders, the most cunning, the most ruthless, stopped to reassess. They had faced humans before. Yes, they had faced Earth's armies and thought them weak. But now, standing before these legends, the aliens realized their mistake. On the ground, humans felt the shift in momentum. Soldiers who had been ready to retreat now stood taller, their morale lifted. There was hope here, fierce and almost tangible, but also fear. Hope and terror were intertwined, two sides of the same coin. Elena signaled her squad to advance. Stay close. Watch them. Learn. Follow their lead. The feared species moved like shadows across the battlefield, disappearing behind rubble and reappearing where they were least expected. Their attacks were swift and precise, eliminating alien squads before they even knew they were threatened. Elena noticed something extraordinary. Humans seemed to instinctively understand their guidance. Without a word spoken, the newcomers' movements suggested strategy, direction, and instruction. Humans who had been disorganized, desperate, and frightened now moved with a purpose that mirrored the legends beside them. In the distance, the alien commanders attempted to regroup. "This is impossible," one shrieked, his mandibles clattering in anger. "They are not natural. How can humans summon this?" Another commander snarled, "It does not matter. Kill them all. Leave nothing standing." But the next strike came before they could finish their orders. One of the feared species leapt forward, moving faster than the eye could follow. Alien soldiers fell in seconds. Their weapons, advanced and deadly, were no match for newcomers. Each movement was a lesson in precision, each attack a display of judgment. Elena felt her heart race. She had faced terrifying enemies before, but this was beyond comprehension. It was as if the very laws of the universe had been in favor of the humans, answering a desperate call made when hope had almost died. The battle intensified. Alien squads attempted flanking maneuvers, sending small groups to harass human forces. The feared species intercepted them with terrifying efficiency. No one knew where they would strike next. One moment, a warrior would appear in the middle of an alien formation, eliminating the strongest soldiers in seconds. The next, they would vanish, leaving humans in awe and aliens in horror. Elena moved carefully through the streets with her squad, following the subtle guidance of the newcomers. Civilians huddled behind walls, watching in disbelief. They had never seen anything like this. Humans who had been running from the aliens now stood shoulder to shoulder with legends. Yet, amidst the chaos, a creeping sense of dread lingered. The newcomers were not human allies. They were wild, ancient, and utterly unpredictable. There was no loyalty, no mercy. Their judgment was absolute, their actions precise. Humanity had called them, yes, but they did not belong to humans. A deafening roar split the air. Elena looked up to see the leader of the feared species descending. Taller, broader, and more terrifying than the others, his presence commanded attention. His eyes glowed with a light that seemed to pierce every shadow. His weapon, a long staff that hummed with energy, radiated power unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. He stepped onto the battlefield, and silence fell. Even the wind seemed to pause. The aliens froze, their formations faltering, and then with a single motion, he struck. Entire squads vanished, their weapons and armor torn apart in an instant. Elena's squad ducked behind rubble, hearts pounding. "He's unstoppable," whispered Private Rylan. "Nothing can survive that." Elena nodded. She had seen it too. And yet, she knew they had to move. Humans could not simply watch. The aliens were still dangerous, still numerous. If they hesitated, even for a moment, the opportunity would be lost. Following the subtle cues of the newcomers, Elena led her squad into action. They moved carefully, reclaiming positions lost the previous day. Alien patrols fell before them, confused and terrified. The humans were no longer just survivors. They were soldiers guided by the invisible hand of legends. High above, the alien commanders watched in disbelief. "We underestimated them." One growled, "We underestimated humans. And now we will lose everything." Below, the feared species continued their silent march. They did not speak to humans, did not give orders. Their presence alone was enough. And yet, Elena noticed something. They were assessing humans, watching their courage, their fear, their decisions, judging not just their survival, but their worthiness. The humans were gaining ground, yes, but the battle was far from over. Alien reinforcements were on the way, and the feared species, as powerful as they were still mysterious. Their motives remained unknown, their loyalty uncertain. Elena's mind raced. She had seen hope and terror intertwine in the eyes of her soldiers. She had felt awe and fear in equal measure. And yet, she knew that calling the feared species had been humanity's only chance. Private Rylan stumbled, nearly falling over a fallen alien drone. "Commander, do you think they'll stay? Or will they leave after this?" Elena paused, looking up at the towering figure of the leader. "I don't know," she admitted. "They fight for now, but their loyalty is not ours. We survive because they allow it, and they judge us every step of the way." The battle raged on. Alien technology was powerful, yes, but it was no match for the combination of human ingenuity and the mysterious species' lethal efficiency. Explosions shook buildings, fire raged across the streets, and the air was filled with a hum of strange weapons that humans had never seen before. And through it all, the leader moved with purpose. Every strike was calculated, every move a lesson in dominance. Aliens who had once mocked humanity now ran in terror. Humans who had been desperate and defeated now pressed forward with courage they did not know they possessed. But even in the midst of awe and victory, a silent fear lingered. The feared species were not human. They did not fight for friendship, loyalty, or honor. They fought for judgment, for purpose, for reasons the humans could not understand. To call them was to invite both salvation and danger. Elena's squad pressed onward, following subtle guidance from the newcomers. They rescued civilians, reclaimed territory, and fought side by side with beings of legend. Each step forward was a testament to human courage, and a reminder that survival required more than bravery alone. The aliens, sensing the tide had turned, made one final push. Their leader emerged from the shadows, wielding devastating technology designed to crush resistance. But before he could act, the leader of the feared species intervened. With a single, precise strike, the alien commander fell. His forces scattered. The battlefield fell silent. The humans stared in awe. The aliens fled. And the newcomers, standing tall and imposing, remained. Elena realized something important. Humanity had survived the impossible, yes. But this was only the beginning. The feared species had arrived, but their presence was not a gift. It was a test. A measure of courage, judgment, and worthiness. As night fell over the city, the air hummed with silent power. The humans huddled in the ruins, exhausted but alive. They had seen legends in action, and they had survived. But questions lingered. Who were these beings? Why had they returned now? And what would happen when the battle was truly over? Elena looked up at the sky, where faint shapes moved in the darkness. The answer was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had awakened something that the universe had not seen in centuries. The arrival of fear had come, and with it, a force so powerful, so unstoppable, that even the bravest soldiers trembled. And yet, for the first time, they felt hope. The city was a graveyard. Buildings lay in ruins, streets were shattered, and smoke curled into the sky like dark fingers. Humanity had survived, but the cost was enormous. Yet, despite the devastation, there was hope, a fragile, burning hope that could not be snuffed out. Elena Hart stood on the rooftop of a crumbling building, her uniform torn and stained. She watched as humans regrouped, their movements sharper, more confident than yesterday. The presence of the feared species had transformed them. Soldiers who had trembled with fear now stood tall, ready to fight, ready to survive. Behind her, the newcomers, towering, armored, glowing with a strange light, moved silently among the ranks. They did not speak, but their presence was enough. Every human soldier instinctively followed their guidance, coordinating attacks without words. "Elena," Lieutenant Marco said, approaching cautiously. "The aliens, they're coming. In full force this time. Reinforcements, they're massive." Elena nodded. She had expected this. The aliens would not surrender easily. They were cunning, relentless, and full of hatred. But humanity had an advantage now, a force that no alien had ever faced. The distant sky darkened as massive alien ships approached. Their engines burned like suns, casting shadows across the city. Ground forces marched with precision, forming tight ranks. Their weapons gleamed with deadly intent. The aliens had regrouped, and this time they were prepared. The humans braced themselves. The civilians fled wherever they could, guided by small squads led by soldiers who had learned courage in the last days. Elena gathered her team. "Stay close. Follow the patterns. Watch the newcomers. They'll lead us." The first clash was brutal. Alien squads advanced, firing energy weapons that tore through rubble and steel. But the newcomers were faster, stronger, and smarter. They struck like lightning, dismantling alien formations before they could organize. One movement, one strike, and entire squads fell, leaving nothing but silence and fear behind. Elena led her squad forward, using the chaos to their advantage. Soldiers reclaimed lost streets, rescuing civilians, and reclaiming positions once thought lost forever. The humans were no longer mere survivors. They were warriors, inspired by the legends walking among them. The alien commander appeared, towering above his troops. His armor was dark and jagged, bristling with weapons. His voice boomed across the battlefield, a sound like grinding metal. "Destroy them. Leave nothing alive. Humanity will fall." But before his order could be carried out, the leader of the feared species appeared. Taller, broader, his armor shining with strange energy. He moved like a storm across the battlefield. Alien soldiers fell before him, as if swallowed by the earth itself. His weapon, a long staff humming with power, struck down the strongest, the fastest, the most cunning of the enemy. Elena watched in awe. The humans fought with renewed strength, following the subtle cues of the newcomers. Together, they were unstoppable, a perfect combination of human ingenuity and legendary power. Yet, even amidst victory, tension lingered. The newcomers were not friends. They did not fight for loyalty or mercy. They fought for judgment, for purpose, for reasons humans could not understand. Humanity had survived because they were needed, but they were being tested with every step. The alien commander unleashed a secret weapon, a massive energy cannon, capable of leveling entire blocks, powered up and aimed directly at the human lines. Soldiers froze. Civilians screamed. The weapon hummed, its sound shaking the ground. Elena grabbed Private Rylan, pulling him behind a crumbling wall. "Stay down," she shouted. But the newcomers did not hesitate. The leader of the feared species raised a staff, and a wave of energy surged across the battlefield. The alien weapon exploded mid-charge, disintegrated in a flash of blinding light. Alien soldiers scattered in terror, their morale breaking. Humans advanced. Using the opening, squads pushed forward, reclaiming streets, rooftops, and alleys. Elena's team moved with precision, rescuing those trapped in chaos. The newcomers struck at the enemy relentlessly, moving like shadows and storms, their power undeniable. The alien commander roared, frustration and rage blending into a sound that shook the air. He summoned reinforcements, waves of soldiers and machines moving to flank the humans. But the feared species anticipated every move. They struck before the aliens could act, dismantling formations and cutting through the enemy with terrifying efficiency. Elena saw the humans' courage growing with every victory. Soldiers who'd been terrified just days ago now fought with determination. Their shots were precise, their movements coordinated. Humanity had become more than survivors. They had become a force, guided by legends. In the midst of the chaos, Elena spotted a group of alien sharpshooters aiming at civilians trapped in a collapsed building. Without hesitation, she led her squad into action, dodging blasts and rubble. They fought their way through, the newcomers silently protecting flanks and eliminating threats with deadly efficiency. The civilians were saved, and the squad regrouped, hearts pounding but alive. High above, the alien commander grew desperate. He unleashed another wave, faster, deadlier, determined to crush humanity once and for all. But the newcomers were ready. They moved like living storms, their strikes precise, their power overwhelming. Entire waves of aliens were destroyed before they could reach the humans. Then, the leader of the feared species paused. Elena watched, tense. The hum of his weapon filled the air, energy building, light blazing. The ground shook as he prepared his final strike. The aliens, sensing the danger, faltered. Their formation collapsed. Their morale shattered. With one incredible motion, he struck. Energy surged. Explosions ripped across the battlefield, and the alien commander himself was thrown to the ground. His forces scattered, running in terror, no longer able to resist. Elena's squad cheered silently, too focused to shout. Humans had survived the impossible. They had fought beside legends and witnessed the unthinkable. But even as they celebrated, there was understanding. The war was not over. The aliens would return. The newcomers could leave at any time. And humanity would need to continue proving its worth, not just in strength, but in courage, judgment, and survival. Private Ryland, breathless and exhausted, looked at Elena. We did it, right? We won. Elena shook her head slowly. Not yet. We survived. We reclaimed the ground. But the battle, the real battle, may still be ahead. We've caught a force unlike anything the universe has seen, and we must live up to it. Night fell over the battlefield, but the energy of the newcomers did not fade. Their presence radiated across the city, a silent promise, a warning and a reminder. Humans had survived. They had fought with legends. And the aliens had learned that humanity was not weak, not helpless, and not to be underestimated. Elena looked at the horizon. Fires burned, shadows danced, and the wind carried the faint hum of the feared species. The humans had made a choice to survive, to fight, to awaken the legends. And now, standing amidst ruins and victory, they had a chance to reclaim their world, to reclaim their courage, and to face whatever the universe would throw at them next. The final stand had been made. Humanity had survived the impossible, guided by power they could barely comprehend. But questions lingered. Who were these beings truly? Why had they returned now? And what would they demand once the battle was truly over? Elena's heart beat fast, filled with both relief and tension. They had survived. Yes, they had fought beside legends. But the true test, the one that would decide humanity's place in the universe, was still to come. The city was silent, but not at peace. The aliens had fled for now. Humans had survived. And the newcomers, the feared species, waited, watching, judging, silent, terrifying, and impossible to ignore. For the first time, Elena allowed herself to breathe. She had survived. She had led her squad through unimaginable horrors. And for the first time, she felt something she had not felt in weeks. Hope. But deep down, she knew the truth. Survival was only the beginning. The universe had been awakened, legends had returned, and the final battles, the ones that would define humanity's future, were still ahead. And as the wind carried the distant hum of the newcomers across the ruins, Elena whispered to herself, "We have survived the impossible." But the story is far from over. The city was quiet, but the silence was not peace. Smoke still rose from the ruins, carrying the scent of fire and metal. Buildings had collapsed. Streets were torn apart, and the ground was littered with the remains of machines and soldiers alike. Humanity had survived, yes, but survival had come at a cost. Elena Hart walked through the rubble, her uniform torn and dirt-stained. Around her, soldiers moved cautiously, searching for survivors and securing what remained. The hum of the feared species, faint but unmistakable, drifted across the city, a reminder that they had been there and that they were still watching. The aliens had fled, or perhaps regrouped elsewhere. Their thread had been broken, their forces scattered, and their morale shattered. But Elena knew better than to think the danger was over. They were cunning, patient, and ruthless. If they returned, it would not be with mercy. Private Ryland stumbled beside her, exhausted but alive. "Commander, it's over, right? We won." Elena shook her head slowly. "We won this battle," she said. "But the war is far from over. We've survived because of them, the legends, but we cannot rely on them forever. Humanity must stand on its own eventually." She gestured to the figures moving silently among the ruins. The feared species had begun to withdraw, each step precise, controlled, and deliberate. They did not speak. They did not explain, but their presence had changed everything. Humans had seen what true power looked like. They had witnessed legends in action. And now, they were left to reckon with what that meant for their future. The survivors gathered in the central square of the city. Fires burned around them, casting flickering shadows on faces marked by exhaustion, fear, and relief. Soldiers tended to the wounded, while civilians huddled together, whispering prayers of thanks. For the first time in days, humanity had a moment to breathe. Elena watched quietly. She had led her squad through unimaginable horrors, fought beside beings that the universe itself feared, and now she saw the faces of those who had survived. Courage had grown here, in the shadow of devastation. The humans who had once trembled with fear now stood tall, their eyes reflecting determination and awe. Yet, even in this fragile moment of relief, tension lingered. The newcomers had not stayed to celebrate. They had not spoken of loyalty or promises. Their motives remained a mystery, their presence a force beyond understanding. Humans had survived because they were needed, and because they had been worthy, at least for now. A soft hum drew Elena's attention to the horizon. The leader of the feared species stood on a high ridge, overlooking the ruins. Taller and broader than the rest, his armor glimmered faintly in the light of the setting sun. He did not move toward the humans. He did not signal. He simply watched, judging, waiting. Elena approached him cautiously, flanked by her squad. She wondered what it meant, whether he approved or disapproved, whether humanity had passed some invisible test. The leader's eyes met hers for a brief moment. It was not kindness she saw, nor approval. It was recognition, a quiet acknowledgement of survival, of courage, of determination. Then, without a word, he turned and began to leave. The others followed. And just as suddenly as they had arrived, the feared species vanished from sight, their presence fading like a storm passing through the city. A wave of silence fell over the humans. Private Ryland whispered, They're gone." Elena nodded. "For now. But remember this, they came for us because we needed them. They will not fight our battles forever. Humanity must learn to stand on its own." The night deepened, and survivors gathered around small fires. Soldiers shared stories of courage and survival. Civilians whispered tales of mysterious beings who had turned the tide, and for the first time in weeks, there were smiles among the people. Yet, Elena's thoughts were heavy. The battle had been won, yes, but at what cost? Cities lay in ruins. Thousands had died, and the aliens, though defeated for now, were still out there plotting, waiting for another chance. Lieutenant Marcos approached her, his face tired but resolute. "Commander, the Council want a full report. They need to understand what happened, how we survived, how we called them." Elena shook her head. "Some things cannot be explained. Lieutenant, humanity survived because we dared when we had no choice, because we stood when all hope seemed lost, and because legends answered our call. But the details, some things the universe does not reveal." Marcos nodded slowly, understanding the weight of her words. They had survived something that few humans could even imagine. They had fought beside beings whose power and judgment transcended all understanding. And they had lived to tell the story. As dawn broke, the city looked different. Not healed, not rebuilt, but transformed. Humanity had seen its potential, glimpsed the power that lay in courage, determination, and unity. Soldiers moved to the ruins with purpose. Civilians began to clean and rebuild, and somewhere, deep inside every human who had survived, a spark had been lit. A spark that could not be extinguished by fear, war, or destruction. Elena stood on the highest rooftop she could find, looking over the city. The scars of battle were everywhere, but so was hope. She thought of the feared species, of their judgment, of their fleeting presence. And she realized something. Survival was not just about fighting. It was about learning, adapting, and daring to face the impossible. Private Rylan approached her, carrying a small pack of supplies for the wounded. "Commander, do you think they'll come back if we need them?" Elena smiled faintly, though her eyes were serious. "Perhaps, but we cannot rely on it. Humanity must be ready for the next battle. Even if they do not return. We survive because we called them, yes, but we must endure, even if we are left alone." The city stirred as more survivors emerged from hiding. Children ran through the streets cautiously, laughing despite the destruction. Soldiers helped rebuild makeshift shelters. And amidst the chaos, a quiet determination filled the air. Humanity had been tested. Humanity had survived. And humanity had awakened something inside itself that could never be erased. Elena's mind wandered to the aliens. They had fled. Yes, but would they return? She had no doubt they would. They were cunning, patient, and vengeful. And yet, humanity had changed. The battle had awakened courage, strategy, and unity in the hearts of the survivors. The aliens would find no easy prey here again. As the sun rose higher, Elena gathered her squad. "We rebuild," she said simply. "We heal, and we prepare. The universe will not wait for us, and neither will our enemies. But we survived. That is proof that we can endure no matter what comes next." Private Rylan nodded, a new confidence in his eyes. "Yes, Commander, we survived. And next time we'll be ready." The hum of the feared species lingered faintly in the distance, a reminder of power, judgment, and legends. They had come, they had fought, and they had left. Humanity had survived because it had dared to call them, and because it had stood when all hope seemed lost. But Elena knew the truth. Survival was only the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with dangers, mysteries, and threats that humans could barely comprehend. The legends had given them a chance, yes, but it was humanity's courage, ingenuity, and determination that would decide their future. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the ruined city, Elena felt it, a quiet certainty that humanity had changed forever. The legends had returned, the aliens had been defeated, and humanity had survived the impossible. But the story was far from over. The universe had watched, and it had taken notice. The feared species had come once, and they could come again. The aliens had fled, but their hatred had not diminished. And humanity, now awakened to its potential, would face the next challenge not as victims, but as survivors, warriors, and legends in its own right. Elena looked out over the city one last time, feeling the weight of survival, hope, and the future. "We have endured," she whispered, "and we will endure again. The universe may fear us, the legends may judge us, and our enemies may return. But we are humanity, and we do not give up." The sun climbed higher, casting light over the ruins, illuminating the scars and the courage that survived them. Humanity had faced the impossible, called the feared, and endured. And in that endurance lay the promise of tomorrow, a tomorrow